Had a brother send me this article here. Thought it was rather interesting. Figured I'd share it with you. In a different location today. Going to go over to our property, and didn't work out. Truck broke down actually, so I need to fix it. I think it's probably the starter, but got to fix it. But we're in a different location today, and so going to read this article for you here, make some comments along the way. Sorry about the sunlight that's really kind of hit me here too, but let's get through it here. Kentucky churches being turned into mosques. Let's look at this article. It says, Louisville, the growing trend of former church buildings being turned into mosques and Islamic centers has reached Kentucky's largest city, where even some once thriving Southern Baptist facilities are now occupied by Muslims. On a trip to England a few years ago, I recall seeing dozens of churches that had become mosques and wondering how it could happen there. Now it's happening here, said Paul Chitwood, Executive Director of the Kentucky Baptist Convention. Todd Robertson, pastor of Antioch Baptist Church in Louisville, said the religious makeup of the Bible Belt is rapidly changing. With declining membership in many Christian congregations and growing participation in Islam and other religions. We have at least 3 former Baptist churches in Louisville that are no longer Baptist churches. 2 are mosques and 1 is a Sikh temple, and that's a reality that's troubling for many of us, he said. Robertson is urging Kentucky Baptists to think strategically to find ways to revitalize shrinking congregations and to protect the assets of those that end up closing. He is among those leaders calling for churches that have weakened to the point of closing to donate their buildings and property for church plants rather than putting them up for sale. Well, they really can't if they are 501c3. If you're 501c3, the government owns your building, so you can't sell your building. You can donate it to somebody, you can give it to somebody, but you can't sell it if you're 501c3. Interesting. In Kentucky and throughout the Southern Baptist Convention, the number of Christian converts has been in steady decline in recent years, while other religions have been experiencing rapid growth. Louisville, for example, now has more than 20 mosques. This should be a call to action for Kentucky Baptists to get serious about telling others about Jesus, Chitwood said. Since becoming head of the KBC 3 years ago, that's KBC, not KFC, Chitwood has preached the need for church revitalization. He has put together a troupe of regional consultants to work with local churches on growth strategies, while also embarking on an ambitious push to plant hundreds of new churches across the state. The needs are obvious. The number of new believers being baptized fell from 14,984 in 2012 to 13,970 in 2013, a decline of roughly 1,000. We are on the brink of a massive transfer of kingdom assets. Oh, kingdom assets? I didn't think our kingdom was supposed to be here on this earth right now. Transfer of kingdom assets. Reckon the guy might be post-millennial, you know? We got to bring in the kingdom and then Jesus comes back at the end? Pretty messed up. Says here, Robertson said, I'm talking about property, buildings and things like that of churches that in their heyday of the 50s and 60s were exploding with growth. They were never supposed to be there. God never said, build these church buildings. And now it's coming home to roost, and they're going, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to lose them. Well, you shouldn't have had them in the first place. Continuing, Roberts said many of those churches are now on the brink of closing. Some, he said, will end up throwing their building on the market and having it bought by who knows who for who knows what. What a shame. Former church buildings typically need only minor renovations to be used as mosques and Islamic centers and are generally less expensive than constructing new ones from the ground up. Wait a second. If these holy Baptist temples are such holy places, why is it the Muslims can come in and just do a few things and then they're suitable for Muslims? How about that? And you study church history and you realize that the Catholics were the ones who had the temples, the pagan temples, that they were worshiping in. And Islam comes from Catholicism. And church buildings come from Catholicism. Do you reckon that's maybe the reason why you have Islam that can move right into Baptist churches and just do a couple little things and they look just like a Muslim temple? How about that? 3 more paragraphs here. It says, we have to face the reality of it, Robertson said. We've got to look ahead and think how we are going to strategically address this issue so that we continue to leverage the assets that God has blessed us with. No, he didn't. With for the sake of the kingdom, so that the gospel will continue to be proclaimed. Look at the implication there. You have to have a physical church building so that the gospel can continue to be proclaimed. That's how warped the mind of modern professing Christians has become. You don't see it even in the book of Acts. You don't see it anywhere in the New Testament where they're building buildings and inviting the lost to them to get them saved. You don't see it. But now we can't do without it. Robertson warned that unless Kentucky Baptists think strategically about how to change the tide of shrinking congregations, they're going to see increasing numbers of church buildings turned into places of worship for other religions. Why not? They're all 501c3. Now I know they're just buildings, and that's not the church. They all say this. But yet I see them in the grander scheme as kingdom assets, he said. I think we should have a very different mindset about what happens to those assets. The guy ought to maybe study the Bible a bit more and see that the body of Christ is just about ready to leave. And our physical assets are going to be the property of the state, ultimately of the Antichrist. Sure. You say, well, maybe our families will get them. Oh, I don't know. Depending on how they spin the propaganda to explain away the rapture. They could say we're terrorists and the government could confiscate everything that you have. Kind of makes you wonder, why would you put a whole lot of money into things down here on this earth, knowing that the Antichrist is going to get it? Just something to think about, brethren. But I've been talking about this for a while, and I thank you to the brother that sent me this article. The Babel buildings are headed down. The scriptures say so. The Antichrist is going to be worshipped in Babel buildings.